I just want to be in the industry, Kate. I don't ask for much. Anyway.
It's the worst time to get into the industry. Anyway, hi!
Yeah. On that note, hello, Kate Hammer. I mean, hang on, because I need to list your accolades, but you're an actor, writer, comedian. What else do you do? Because you do a lot of things.
Director.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's mostly it.
Survival of car crashes.
Wow, you've really done some research.
No, I just read the forum, Kate. I'm just familiar with you valiantly showing up to a gig.
Oh, okay. No, I've been in multiple car accidents, so that's why I forgot about that one. Yeah.
No, that's the one I know about.
Yeah.
For the record, for those that don't know.
I guess I wouldn't call that a car accident only because for me that was a car bike. So I feel like I got hit. But I have been in another car-on-car accident. Yeah.
That's fair enough. That
just once, though.
Fair enough. Well, you don't want to get too much. I've had one, but I wasn't driving. I was reading like a nerd, and next thing I know, it's just an airbag in my face.
Were you in the passenger seat?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then, did you feel like was the book so pressed hard against you that you intook the knowledge?
Actually, I'm kind of lied to myself there a bit. I had the book with me. I had it on the side. I wasn't reading.
You're right.
I'm not. It was War and Peace, though. Okay, Can I get some credit? I was reading War and Peace on the summer holiday.
No, you weren't reading it. You just said.
Yeah, well, not when the car crash happened. I just remember we got out of the thing because basically we just swerved and hit the ditch. This was in Romania, village roads. And I just remember my first thought being, oh my God, this book is from the library. Where... Just get my book. Are you guys okay? Where's my book? So yeah, but let's get back to you, Kate. I feel like this is not about my brush with death.
You're gonna this whole podcast. I'm gonna turn it around on you.
No. Well, I've done enough.
Just you wait and see.
I've done enough of that. But yes, hello. We've talked about all the things you do, and you're also from Canada.
Yes.
Now the reason I mentioned that is because Another Drip Bites the Dust is about immigrant artists active in the UK. And you're one of those people.
I'm one of those people. Hello.
And I'm just going to check that we're rolling, but I think we are.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. But I mean, this is all about you. How did you... easy. How did you end up in the arts?
Oh, in the arts. I mean, that's like... I feel like I fought pretty hard against it, to be honest. Okay. Because it's not a safe... Or like what I grew up on a farm. And no one in my family was full-time artists whatsoever. Like, I'm sure, there's creative people, but everyone was farmers, or like engineers, or just like we had jobs. And so I remember even, I was like in a musical at school, Oliver, I think we were doing, but we couldn't afford the rights to the real Oliver music, so it was this weird secondhand cheap Oliver. So all the classics gone. It was just like everything had to be changed slightly to fit the what we could afford as a school.
So do you have to change the music, or do you have to change the words? Or
it was both. I think I used to make a joke being like, instead of like they have that like with a little bit of luck, and it'd be like with a small amount of good fortune.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That famous classic. Oh. So, but I was just like a small role. It wasn't Oliver, it was Annie. Anyway, we did Oliver another time. It was Annie, and I played a really small role, and someone afterwards, I don't even remember, like someone in grade 8 or something, came up to me and said, you were really good, you should be an actor. And I had never clicked that could be like that was something that people did for a job or for a living, and I was like, what? And then always really creative in and out of school. Loved being on the stage, in all the musicals, and I think would also kind of get in trouble for wanting to do and kind of perform and help stuff out, because I remember you said what in my brain. I was like, she sounds like Owen Wilson. That's when you say what, this sounds what? And so loved that. Went to high school at like there's 3 high schools I could go to. I went to the arts high school, which was a really hard decision because everyone else in my family went to Northwestern, which is like the tech high school. and I felt like I was doing a disservice to my family. But went there, continued to be in the arts and drama and communications, which was amazing. Like it was just such a good program there. And then it came time to decide what to do for school. And I think that's when I kind of took like a couple different routes, because I applied for some film programs. I didn't get into the one that I most wanted. I got on the waiting list of it.
Okay.
And I was so personally hurt by that I like never checked it again. I like was like, I'm not getting emails from this, and like I
would never
like, fuck you to that
I'm
school.
not applying to you guys.
Yeah, I think one of my friends got in, and I was like, I get higher grades than him. I do better. I do more in communications class. It's just one of those things to be like, you try so hard, and you're like, what? Anyway. And then, but I got into another one, but I was like, I was like, I'm out of here. And I became an au pair in France for a while. And then I like went back and forth, traveled around, became a tour guide, working like admin. And then I moved to Montreal for a creative writing degree. And that kind of allowed me to like have a base and to get back into performing, try improv, get into that, try stand-up for the first time, do more sketch and theater, and then build that way up. And it was also, I think, a big thing for me to do a creative writing degree, because again, it was like that first sign of being like, I'm not going to do a safe degree. Like, I'm good at math, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to choose to do this other thing. And it's so terrifying to invest in yourself, but I think it was that thought that I knew I would regret it not trying and just being like the funny one at the engineer
convention
place. Yeah, I don't even know. Rather than like actually trying to go for it.
I mean, Kate Hammer, the au pair, and Kate Hammer, the engineer, doing voices would be quite a sight, quite an experience.
I'm sure it would be great. I would have much higher financial security. I wouldn't need a visa to stay here. But yeah, I was just like, I feel so, I'm like resentful that it took me so long to get to this point of being like, I'm going to invest in myself. Like all through 20s, it was just kind of like, oh, I'd like to do that. Oh, it doesn't work. You never prioritize like trying to do improv and ever seeing that like when you grow up on a farm and then in a small town, there's no stand-up scene to get into. There's you can't even go see a stand-up show. It's just something you see on TV. So you're so disconnected from it that... it's actually been a big journey to get to this place of like working in TV and then having all my extracurriculars also be like filmmaking, theater, comedy, performance. Yeah.
Now I can completely relate to that, because small town, Romania, Jehovah's Witness parents. So a lot of, and then I realized that you don't actually pick sort of, the achievement. When you kind of pick a way of life, I think that's the easiest way to be happy in the industry. And if that way of life is just not available around, you don't see people actually just living that thing. It's kind of like, huh?
Yeah. And especially, I don't know if this is with you, but it's not like my parents ever said, like, you can't do that. It wasn't, the Footloose, Dirty Dancing being like, you can't, don't you dare. But it was more just like the general consensus. It's almost like, like learned heteronormativity, where you're like, oh, well, this is just the way we do things.
Yeah,
so I should
normal.
be. Yeah, I remember then I did the Oliver play. I was Fagin, so it was quite a big role, actually. And then...
Look at those kids. How dare you?
And my parents were like, I think my mom said something like, oh, you're so like good up there. You should be a salesperson. Or you should go into PR. Like, it was always this, this like, so it wasn't like they didn't support me. They absolutely did, but it was always like, oh, well, you should do PR like Cousin Tanya. And you're like, I don't want to be your Cousin Tanya. Like, she's happy, she's great. But like, that's not, I don't want to do these things that like take my skills and put them into marketable ways.
Yeah, no, it's like when parents have blind spots and they're just looking back, you're like, it's just so hilarious. They're just like, yeah, you're so good in that. Why don't you do something completely different?
Yeah.
It's,
That uses this good, but it's safe and it's money. And I think maybe it's why I never relate to those films that are like, the one kid like dreaming so big, being like, one day I'll do this. And I'd be like, so you never spoke that. Like in my head, I'd be like, I'll be like in movies, and that would be, but like, that was in the back thought of your head. so that like it wasn't even an option. It was too big for me to dream about doing, you know?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because like you see your family not being supportive, considering your dad is Bruce Willis. I mean,
yeah, I was thinking about this the other day where I was like, I should check up on him and like how he's doing, because he had the diagnosis and he's been out of the spotlight, and I just hope that he is well.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I should probably be tracking how he's doing and how I talk about that, because I need to know before I say something very out of touch. Yeah. Yeah. So we haven't done that research. So.
Like all the thoughts I have in my brain where I'm like, well, I guess he just doesn't remember, you know?
Oh, God, I know. The jokes are too easy.
Yes.
Too easy.
Yes.
So, in fact, we should not say them.
True. I agree. But I remember, I think that was the first time I saw your sort of presence on social media, was that show at the Fringe.
Right.
So that was like my first memory of, not a personal K-Hammer experience, but like the virtual K-Hammer of like, my dad's Bruce Willis. Yeah,
it was a fun show to write, and that is, I mean, speaking about like pushing thought to the back of your head, the premise of that show was that like, I had a real belief when I was young that I was adopted because I didn't fit in with my family. I was so different in these creative ways, and so I think my coping mechanism was to like, find an escape, and I don't know why, but it was Bruce Willis, and
because he's Bruce fucking
Willis.
Willis.
Bruce Willis, and maybe I think I just saw Die Hard for a second before being forced to go to bed, and like really had in my head being like, he's gonna come back for me and we're gonna go make movies together. And there was always that like clinging to that daydream of like building this world around that. And he never did. And I don't think I can it would be a beautiful full circle if I wrote a movie and he was in it.
Yeah.
But I'll find a new circle.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But that's like, there's something beautiful about that, of just like you coming up with this fantasy to keep the, sort of explain the world to yourself and keep the dream going. Beautiful, sad, I think also. But, like, desperate, pitiful, kind of maybe a bit unhealthy. But yeah, there's something there. I'm sure your therapist. I don't talk about that. I can't afford a therapist right now. So fair enough. Yeah, I think, what was I going to say? I can't remember. Well, when did you realize you're absolutely hilarious? I mean, I think there's so many people who would say that I'm not, including my brothers. And that was like, I grew up with 3 older brothers, so it was a constant fight of like who was the funniest. Right. And I'm lucky that I don't understand a dynamic that doesn't include humor. And even like, that's how I connect with people. Yeah. And so when people are like once I was kind of seeing this person and I kept, would be sending back funny replies. I'd be like, that's a very clever joke, Kate. Very excited. Good job. And to me, that's flirting. Like, that's like, ooh, there's like a fun dynamic. You're like, yeah, this person, like, that's so attractive. And then they were like, why? Every time I try and flirt with you, you just make a joke. And I was where I'm trying to do the same thing, but you're like, okay, clearly you're not funny, and I misread that you were funny. You're not funny, or just we communicate in different ways, and that's not a way that I see as satisfying. Goodbye. But it was really funny because I tried to be like, oh, do I mask things with humor? Blah blah blah. You're like, but that's how we communicate as humans. So much I can take the laughs away and be honest, but why not choose to have a life filled with laughter? Yeah, I think and you can silliness. Spice up the conversation. Why does it have to be? Now, why is serious better? And that goes across every comedic writing and films and TV shows. It's always the TV shows that are comedy dramas that will win the awards. Yeah. Like Bear. I have a really big beef with Bear because The Bear. The show. Have you seen it? Yeah. I haven't seen it. I want to watch it because I've been doing hospitality for 10 years. I mean, it's great. There's so many things to love about it, but I didn't realize it was technically
in the comedy category.
Right.
And I was like, but there's moments, but there are also whole episodes where like not a single funny thing happens.
Yeah.
So like I get very like, but so how are we, I in one way I don't think we should define comedy, and like, because if it's funny, it's funny. If it works, it works.
Yeah,
but I think when you're going into awards season, people will always choose the more dramatic story over the funny. Like no sitcom is winning those awards.
Yeah.
Even though or maybe I don't really, I don't watch full sitcoms, but people love it. It's like the highest rating shows in most places because like it provides so much laughter and relatability and but they're not seen as critically good.
Yeah, I mean that's weird because like in real life we use humor to deal with so many things. Like, maybe it's just us. Maybe we're the weirdos, Kate. But like I know for a fact that whenever anything stressful comes up, like that's when I'm the funniest. I don't know if I'm the funniest, but that's the most jokes happen. They might not be the best jokes,
right?
But there's gonna be a lot of jokes.
There's a lot of like asterisks in that sentence. That's when I'm funniest. Maybe not the funniest, but like pretty funny. That's when they're not good jokes, but that's when jokes happen.
There's a lot of output. There's a lot of comedic output of varying degrees.
An interview with two people, I can't remember, but they were talking about John Cleese. I think he's been married like 5 times. And they're like, he's always the funniest when he's just gotten divorced. Because like when you're happy and you're married, then you don't have anything you're happy. You're not thinking about like, oh, what am I mad about today? And I'll write a set about it. But they're like, whenever he got divorced, it was just like this extra bit of like,
Like you don't care, everybody can get it, like, fuck the love.
Yeah. And there is something fun about that, like using a bad day or a crazy scenario, getting hit by a car on the way to the comedy show. You're like, great, well, I'm just gonna go. Like, there's, it kind of puts this whole extra spin on things or perspective, and it is fun. But then it leads into like the tragic artist, which is healthy in its own right. But there is like something about. It's not like you need to be unhappy all the time, but being in touch with your unhappiness to like get to those places, I think that's you don't want to ponder your existence when you're having a great old time.
No, I don't think anyone's, taking a bunch of ecstasy and be like, let me think about the universe. They're too busy.
Oh, I feel like that's exactly what I don't know.
Can you tell?
Is there 2 people who don't do drugs talking about drugs?
Yeah.
It's very sad.
It has dawned on me that for some reason this episode could be from a first perspective between 2 humans. But
oh, yes. But less...
awkward.
Zach Galifianakis. Well, we can get it there.
Just hang on. We just started talking. This will get there in a minute.
It shouldn't be leaning so much, but I don't know why it's doing that. I need to tie it. Anyway.
Fair enough. So hang on, because you started in Canada, France, back to Canada.
Oh yeah, what brought me here?
I was gonna say that's a long way to get to Bruce Willis.
I so I was doing my creative writing degree. I technically never finished it because they wanted more money, and I had done all the creative writing classes, and they wouldn't let me into any of the classes I really wanted to do, which was like screenwriting or any of the film classes. It was a separate thing. I even like wrote a letter to be specially let in, and they were like, it sounds like you would absolutely fit the course. We don't let anyone else in. Or like any of the arts or performance or science, like they just wouldn't let me in. They're like, well, you can take some nutrition classes. And I was
what are you trying to say?
I was like, I'm an anemic, gluten intolerant, fucking IBS general lady. I know as much about nutrition as I care to, like the level that you're gonna ask me to do. So I got mad, and I was like, well, no one's gonna be mad about a creative writing bachelor's degree. Like, I'm not gonna be a lawyer. I'm not, if I put this on my resume as if I graduated, that like who's gonna be like, well, we were gonna hire you, but then we realized that like Alicia actually finished her degree, so we're gonna have to, even though you're a better writer, we're gonna go with Alicia. Like, that's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I just said fuck it, and then I got a job as a writer at an app, a startup, and then I became the narrative director. So I was like managing 4 people, and it was moving really fast. COVID hit. It was crazy. We were all working from home. I kind of lost my mind.
As we all do.
Yeah, and it was hard being opposite. Like everyone else was like, I can't work anymore. I'm at home and I have all this time, and oh wow, I have time and I'll bake bread. And my company was like, this is the best time to launch. Fucking go, go, go. And I was just like, why can't I be in sync with the rest of the world? Of course, lots of deaths happened, and that was terrible. So not in sync with that part of the world.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Different, lots of things going on.
But I thought that's the one time a creative company went, no, this is it. We're gonna close this deal. We're gonna make money now.
It was a lot. And then I saw, basically, there's a master's here for TV writing at Glasgow Caledonian, and I saw it on some comedy newsletter that from the UK that I subscribed to, and was like, oh, that would be like, that's kind of, I basically did figure out in the pandemic, talking to my flatmate, because it was like, do you want to do comedy? Do you want to do this? Or do you want, like, what do you want to do? Because, I just love doing so many things. And I kind of narrowed it down to being like, I really would love to be in a TV's writer room. I love collaborating. I love pitching ideas. I love more like taking an idea and then, finding 20 ways that could go, or different versions, or how to heighten it and edit and script edit. Like, I love all of that. Yeah. So I was like, that's what I want to do. This course came up. Great, applied, got in, visa hell, got here. The whole course was done on Zoom. So that was upsetting, and won't go into the course. It had some good parts. It had some parts I'm still angry about. And,
okay. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I feel like they owe us money, and we only got a portion of what we're supposed to get, but we paid the same amount. Do you know what I mean? That's what. And we made a complaint. They said, "Well, we've looked at the complaint, and we don't think so." And I was like, "How is this the system where you make a complaint and then it's like I did something, I hit you with my car, and then you were like, hey, Kate, there's this incident, you hit me with a car," and I was like, great, I'll look into that. I'll be like, actually, I think it's fine. Yeah,
it's almost like I shouldn't be the one overseeing the complaint against me.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's a bit of a conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. I'm just saying. Like,
yeah, I could have been. And I'm saying that it's wrong. So anyway, finished the degree, really loved, I think, I just love the UK in terms of like the passion it has for comedy and for performance and the good TV that it makes and the funding that goes into that. I just think the amount of film and TV that is here or should be here right now, but no one's commissioning anything at the moment. But otherwise it's better TV.
I was gonna ask how would you say that like British TV is better to Canadian TV?
Yeah, we just don't make as much. Like everyone thinks Canada has a bustling film and TV industry, and they do to a certain point. Yeah. They make shows, but so many of the shows that are made in Canada are U.S. companies filming in Canada because it's cheaper. So we kind of become this haven for filming.
So it's a bit like London coming up here to you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Disney coming up. It's Suits filmed there. So many shows just go and film because Toronto's a really good replacement for New York. It's so much easier to shut down if you need to. It's like there's less people. It's just
interesting.
So like I think below the line workers have a good time of like, great, there's lots of things filming. Again, not at the moment. But for self-made content, and again, it does exist. So, but just at like certain levels, and I think here there's such a clear pipeline from performer or theater maker or stand-up into TV and getting on TV, writing, trusting, like being nurtured. Like they want to develop talent.
Yeah. So you're saying like it's like the current's with you rather than against you.
I think
they're just neutral.
They know how to make theater into TV because that's like it started. That's how it started here. It was like they just filmed theater performances, and so then it became this art of how to make that actually work for being filmed and take advantage of it being filmed. I think that's just really inspiring. There's just a script, like what they make here is like you watch it and you feel taken care of for the most part. There's still bad shows.
Yeah, but I mean,
I feel like you feel taken care of as an audience member because they are really better at striking this balance of making you feel smart as an audience member, but still like give you just enough information. Really good actors, really good
And they know when to end them.
Yeah, and they know when to, yes. And also, like, that's it. Less episodes, but higher quality, and, like, you're still engaged. So I think it's just, yeah, there's good Canadian TV shows, but it really feels like with how many they make a year and how many people there are, it couldn't compare to what the UK produces.
Is that because, like, the money people are more involved in not just Canada, but like the US than they are in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for the UK to Canada, what I can speak to is that the BBC still runs on license fees.
Yeah.
The CBC in Canada used to run on license fees until the 60s.
Right.
Then they stopped. And since then, funding has just been like slashed from the CBC, which is the only national, like we don't have a Channel 4, like, you know, the same setup that's like still publicly owned. It's just CBC, and then it's other channels that are mostly play US shows. So it's just like it's impossible for them to make something unless it's like backed by Eugene and Dan Levy, you know, and it's the Schitt's Creek, which is massive. But even that, like, yeah, anyway, I've heard, anyway, it took a lot of the money to make that. It took a lot of investment, and that's not something they would give to peasants like us.
Yeah, I've been fascinated by just learning about the business side of the industry as well, because at some point you're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you got the creative people like, hey, we're going to do this. And then you got the business people. And sometimes the business people win and they squeeze everything out of a fucking story for like 10 seasons. And then you're like, well, this was dead 5 seasons ago. And then I'm just like in this weird place of like trying to figure out. And I feel like there should be a sweet spot where like the creative people learn enough business so they can do their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, I think also for shows that expand long or longer, have more seasons than maybe they should, money speaks very loudly, and like a solid job speaks very loudly. I think what's still in the UK, which is, to me, not the best system, is the idea of the auteur, that one person writes the whole show, like and it does, and like, they can write amazing stuff, like Jed Mercurio, and like there's the Stephen Moffat and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and it's like one name. For the most part, I do think there is a writing room, but it's not. They don't maybe get the credit.
So you reckon that might be?
Yeah, there usually is.
So you got a star writer who will get most of the
will get the credit. Yeah. But at the same time, like for me, a story is never the strongest written by one person. Like unless it's a novel. Yeah, no, it would never. Well, collaboration is the key to any good project.
No, I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Because like at some point you also like there's the too many cooks in the kitchen thing as well.
For sure. You also,
I get where you like if you're by yourself, you can get lost in your own bullshit.
Yeah, I think like a novel or a book or something, that is something that you read solitarily, and that it is, you usually have one protagonist. So you're writing, and TV is meant to be a conversation, and you're writing so many different characters.
That's a fair point.
And so why wouldn't you, it's like, I can write multiple characters, great, but someone else could write them better, and not even write them but pitch in ideas or be this is what they would say. They would never say that. Bringing a different energy to the room and having the right kind of writer's room to come up with different ideas. Because if you have everyone from the same background or same sense of humor, then you're going to be like, great, here's our story, ABC, what should we do for D? And then as a room, you'll go, oh, yeah, this one option. But if you have someone who comes from a different place, they'll be like, oh, well, what about this? And you're adding something new to the mix. And as long as you have that showrunner who is in charge, and I think that showrunner or director for like a short film or depending on the project, like they should be like the colander, the sieve for the ideas, and that everyone should be able to throw all the ideas at that person, but that person is in charge not to shut ideas down, but to take everything and sort out which ones they want. Because there are no bad ideas, but there are more right ideas.
Yeah, they might just not be right for this moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So is that the dream? What's the dream? Hang on, I gotta ask this, but like, what's the project? What's the story you want to tell?
Yeah, I mean, there's not one project. There's a list, and I think it is tricky to decide what to focus on, because it's like, I love doing stand-up, I love performing, I love that connection with the audience, and like the best sets are the ones that you like build improvisation into, and like, or there's something that happens that's unexpected, but you use that as a callback, and it feeds it. Like, those to me are like that's the best set, is like really building a set that can only happen with that audience at that time, is like, oof, you know. But at the same time, it's like, but I love writing, but I also love directing, and I think that's because directing is what I found that most brings all my other skills together, which is like working with actors because I know how it is to be an actor, working with writers because I know how it is to be a writer. I've worked on enough film sets now that like I'm still learning a lot, but like I know what people need, or what more time, or what to prioritize, and how to manage a team. I love like checking in with everyone and having clear communication, being that really like fun person, keeping the tone really light on set, thinking of 10 things at once, thinking what I'm doing next, what just happened, how does that feed into each other, what options do I need of this take to help me in the edit, what's the like you're editing as you're going, you're like, you know, really finding subtle ways to work with the actors to like let them provide the performance that like they're happy with, but is also right for everything.
But you're happy with it.
But that's it, and especially with a comedy, because a comedy is the hardest thing to make, even though it's like less respected. It's like, how are you landing those beats? How it like, because sometimes you'll go into the edit and you're like, this just isn't funny. Like, there's no sparks. You have to keep a spark on set, and I love doing all that. Like on the first short film I like made that was funded in January, I would do, you know,
I've seen the pop-up. What's that called?
Bear.
Yes.
Doing 10 hours on set, and then coming home, you know, doing prep before that, coming home, doing prep for the next day, running lines because I'm also in it. And I was just like, those are the longest days and the most stressful days of my life, but I was thrilled. Like, it was the best stress. Like, there's good stress and bad stress, and I was thriving off it. It was like constant dopamine. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just like in it, and it felt so good. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to be doing and want to get better at. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm kind of leaning into that a little bit as well. Like, I've recently just showed up to someone's music video shoot, and I was gonna do like behind the scenes stuff of like,
okay, I was like, did they know you were coming, or
yes,
you were just
like hey, I'm here, I'm taking over. No, they invited me to do like interviews with everybody on the cast and crew and everybody while they chilling. So next thing I know, now I'm giving them advice on where to find location, because they got kicked out of where they are, and I'm one of the people that lives in Glasgow, and I know the area, so I'm like, you can go there and do that, or you can go there and do that. And I was like, oh my god, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I'm like trying to get into like behind the scenes work, which I mentioned to you. But
yes, yeah.
I picked the one time when the industry decided to stop.
It really is.
For a good reason.
Yeah, I mean, well, good for the strike sense, bad in the sense of like channels not commissioning things, because that is going to like you're going to see that effect for a lot longer as well. Because I work in unscripted, so like that is, you can make that the fastest, and there's a lot of amazing, there's so much good in unscripted, because you can come up with an idea in January and have it be on TV in, you know, the fall. Excuse me, but you could never do that with scripted. It takes like so long to get it up and running. So anyway, we just need the kind of like channels to trust that shows can be made and that revenue will come. And again, like there's the industry is, I feel like, for someone who's coming from completely outside, again, Jehovah's Witness, I was told I'm not allowed to be an actor. Really?
Yeah, it was. Okay. God does not want you to be doing that. God. So coming into it, there's a lot of like the business elements of like I was just fully not aware of, and just trying to figure out all this, the mechanisms, all these, this big thing happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Dealings and wheelings.
Yeah, I think being behind the scenes is so much fun because, again, it's that like high success rate where you're doing this, then you're doing that, and you're grabbing coffee, and then, you know, and you're running and you're seeing this, and that's amazing. And then, because I worked on Batgirl here, and it was just like, great, you're taking a break, and then you're up, and then you see Michael Keaton, and then you're over there, and then, you know, it's just like, it's a really fun world to be a part of and to see how just companies run a set and like building a world together, and like all those years of preparation coming together, which is really cool. But I also am a fan of self-funded, small indie sets because that's like pure passion. And I wish there was more funding to like, even if like a little bit of funding to help make smaller films. I mean, one of them was GMAC Little Pictures, which is what I made Bear Through. There's also Sharp Shorts by Short Circuit, which is a massive jump in the funds that you can get through it. But I just wish there was more funding for the in-between phases because having a smaller set, but like having more content being made and allowing people more practice, I think is really, really useful than being thrown in the deep end. Because like now, I think I've made like 4 or 5 short films so far this year, and then I have a couple coming in the fall.
Oh, check you out!
Yeah, and I'm so
working hard.
Thrilled and lucky and happy to like have met these great people who can join the team and be on it. But like I know I can notice the ways that I'm getting better in how many ways to like improve, whether that's set management or thinking about, like I'm very much a performance person. When I'm watching something, I can be like, yeah, the shot's great, but we're not seeing, you know, someone's emotion or face, or I don't buy that. And I think like for me, the performance is always the most important because that's what you watch a show is for the emotions that you're going to have and attached to it. But now that it's like, okay, we can work with that and think of the visuals and like interesting ways to frame things. But even in that, I think finding someone you really like to work with is great. So I work a lot with my friend Chris, and he's definitely more of like the camera guy and thinking about, how to do a shot like this, because he did go to film school. And so I think I'm like doing a lot of catch up, but we bring such different skills to the table. I really love, again, like finding the people you can collaborate with and like speak with on such an earnest level, but know that there's love there is like so
but
critical.
Sometimes we're like, hurry the fucker.
Yeah, or just because I wrote with him as well. So it's so much, it makes things go 10 times faster when you know, you're like, we're best friends, so this is fine for me to go like, no, absolutely not. What the hell? And he can do the same. He'll be like, this is so exposition-y. I'll be like, all right. You know, if you're having, instead of 2 writers not knowing each other, really trying to go like, oh, I think I might change this line. Is that okay? Like, it just adds on
It's
time.
very polite. I would like to voice my concern about the film.
And I did start off polite with him, but like, it's really nice to find those people who like, you're kind of second nature. Like, an editor I love working with. She's also a producer, Katie Malander. Like there's sometimes I've been editing with her, we'll watch a clip and I'll go, ooh, and she's like, yeah. And then without saying a word, she's like doing the specific thing that I was about to voice. And so
you've got shorthand, you've got.
It's not even this like, it's just, you're like, wow, we just are like intuitively, notice the same thing. And it's so amazing to be like, she's already on it. Like this person knows, she gets it. She gets the story and like, and it's come out so well. So yeah, it's everyone just having a good team is so essential.
Yes, I agree. I got nothing to add.
That rant.
You do also love writing, I take it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask you about that because I'm writing a play.
Oh, congratulations!
I mean, thank you. I've been writing a play for 2 years now, so you know.
What's it about?
It's vaguely inspired by my childhood.
Okay.
Because Jehovah's Witness. So I kind of made up my own cult set in a mountain town, nondescript, no country mentioned, whatever. And just like trying to sort of express and sort of basically communicate what it's like growing up in a cult and then slowly starting to like, maybe this is not fully true. Maybe some of this is bullshit.
Right.
But, but the most interesting thing has been of like, getting the story and then having that technical element on top of it, of like, you got the world and you want it to make sense, but then also there's that, but I'm also telling a story. So at some level, I need it to make sense to the audience.
Yes.
Or just stand
Sooner
on its
than
own.
later, yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, but I can't just, randomly pick scenes that, this will make sense to the audience because they explain everything. But in the world, it's like, they would never say this because why would they?
Yeah.
And it's just that little balance.
Yeah. How much do you go out to see theater?
I mean, a lot more before. I think a lot less nowadays than I should.
Yeah.
I've been watching more stand-up, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to keep that balance. But I think, theater is the one place where watching more of it for me reminds me that you're allowed to do anything, and or to be reminded of the mechanisms you can use, and that you can travel through time and space, or is there this limbo space that it's someone's emotions, or and I think just choosing some of those to play with is always fun. For the last play I wrote, which was a one-woman play, we tried to mimic the structure as with my ADHD, so that there'd be one core storyline, but you're kind of jumping in and out on these tangents of oh, that reminds me, and you need to know this for this flashback or this, and there's ideas in there and moments of absurd realism, but you're always coming back to this singular place and time for that. And I think for the most part, it came across. Obviously there are going to be some people who are it was all over the place, and you're but if you look at it, but I still would love to
that was the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, it was not the whole point for that, but it was trying to kind of play with what comes more naturally to me as a storyteller, which is da-da-da-da, ooh, and da-da, and then but yeah, I think theater's, and it's just more the one of the most accessible things to make.
Yeah,
I would actually,
that's why I wrote a play.
Yeah.
Because I was I can write this as a...
I almost disagree with that now, actually.
Okay.
In Montreal, writing theater was the most accessible thing because, you could write it, you could rent the local theater for, I don't know, $100, $200 for the night, but with the bar and ticket, you'd make, you could make a little bit of money. Then there was multiple theaters that you could, that smaller theaters that you could rent out. And there'd be space to put them on. There was spaces that you could do this at. And so that's why I always held back from making film sketches and that, because that was farther away from my possibility. But what was closer was let's just write this in a week and put it up, and we could do it.
Yeah.
But now I think in Glasgow there aren't a lot of small spaces to do stuff.
Yeah, theatre. I mean, shout out to ACS, Acting Coach Scotland. I think Acting
Coach Scotland is amazing.
They'll let you use their space.
Yes, that's where I did my play.
I did my course there.
Yeah, so they're great. But they were when we were doing research on where else, just to see what other options were. It's it's impossible. It's the Oranmore or the Trom, but they don't let you rent out the small black box. They only commission things for that, even though you're okay. And then other theaters, and it's just I think theater right now is maybe being made in a place of fear rather than a place of we know if we make more, then there'll be more bounty. There's a kind of being we're not going to let anyone rent that out because it could be under our name and da-da-da-da. Or I don't know what the other reasons would be to not rent that out. But you're just but the more theater you make and the more audience you bring in, the more that gets spread out, and they're going to tell their friends, and the more people are going to come. Trust that it is a cycle and create a community instead of being we can't give away the space because da-da-da-da. And you're just I think it really hinders amateur theater being made. And I think a lot of it's confusing to know what's happening all the time too with the lunchtime theater used to have an open reading at Playwright Studio Scotland, but I'm not sure it does anymore. So you're just what are the ways for me to get into it if I want to submit some, and it's hard too because even for the David McClellan playwriting award that's with the Oranmore.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. That's where you submit a 45.
So you submit a pitch at first, a pitch in your first 5 pages or any 5 pages, and then they give you a month or two to write the whole play. So it's like, it is time, but I mean, not for me with ADHD. I'm not going to do it right away. And then like last year I submitted the year before and I got longlisted and they're like, great, submit the play. And the submission date was in the Fringe and I was just like so all over the place and thought I'd have the Bruce Willis show at a different place. I did not. It was just like absolute chaos. And I was like, I'm not going to submit something I don't feel good about.
Yeah.
Because that'll be worse. So then I just didn't submit and that like killed me. But it was one of those things where you're like, that's a lot of work to ask a lot of people to do, is to write a whole play and then only commission, I think 3 out of like, I think the long list was 50. And this isn't bad mouthing that, because we need more of that. I need more play submissions. So if I do write a play for that long list, is there somewhere else I can submit it to? Like, or can I develop it? Or can I have a little bit of money? Or can I have like, you know, and there are, Playwright Studio Scotland is amazing and like offer spaces, Now that I'm working a day job, the space is no longer, I can't really use it because it is daytime stuff, but like there's still a lot of good stuff. But yeah, I think, so anyway, so the main point is that you have a camera, you have sound equipment. For you can make a sketch today. You couldn't put on a play in a week.
Yeah,
so I think
that's,
like,
I was going to ask, like, is online sort of leveling the playing field now? I mean, you can still, like, that was my thing as you were talking about this, of like, can you potentially get a theatre film a show that you've wrote and put it online and see how it does online as an online theatre show? Yeah.
I think online theater is tricky to watch. For me, I don't love watching it because if I'm watching a film, I want to, like, you know, you want to see faces, you want to be engaged, you want different angles to show you different things.
So if it's a theater show, it's quite far away.
It's far away, but also sometimes it's multicam, but even then you're like, it's not ideal. It's definitely, if you want to see the show, you're going to enjoy it, and I'm so glad that option exists. But yeah, ideally, if you're making a film, you wanna think about the shots first, because filming is its own way of storytelling. Yeah. But if you're in a theater, technically, I could be looking wherever I want and noticing different things, and you are going to notice different things. But film it tells you where to look, and it's hard to do while filming just like a theater play. But yeah, absolutely. But I think there's also that difference between, like you're saying, leveling the playing field. Online content, I don't do. I should do it. I don't do it. I hate the idea that I would be talking to myself and looking at myself and just being like, oh, I'm funny. But for me, I'm like, if I'm funny, I'm not writing jokes. I'm funny because I'm trying to make someone laugh. Yeah. There's a connection there, and it can't be like an invisible audience. Like maybe if I tried filming, or had a friend film me doing characters, I could like feel good about it because I'm trying to make my friend laugh. Yeah. But like I find no satisfaction and only a wealth of like self-esteem, hatred in doing like videos speaking to camera.
I've had this image of you just like trying to fake laugh to the camera, like, am I right, guys?
I'm just trying to be natural. You're like, if I'm talking to a friend, great. And then if you're filming me, I could probably be like, I'm going to do it to camera, but it's really for you. And I trick myself. But anyway, I find that's a totally different skill, and it's become a strange like space where people are like, I'm just going to do a little vlog for a second. And you're like, what? The idea to do that would never cross my mind. I would never go like, I got to take a video telling this story. Like, you know, I'm like, I want to tell my friends. I want to, you know, but that's because I'm not online famous, and there's a reason, and I should do better. But yeah, I think just filming like a sketch or a podcast, or you know, or a short film is so much more. You can make a short film.
Well, now I can. Yes, I mean I've done one on a GoPro.
Yeah, honestly, or like your phone can be better than cameras sometimes. But yeah, I think in a weird way, shorts and sketches have become more accessible than live performance, which is just quite sad because we want to drive people to, or not drive them, but like there's a great going out culture here, and I want to see that continue to grow. Yeah.
It's almost like you know, the prices of rent and just trying to get space going up has affected everything.
But again, it's a like, I don't know. I would love to have like a separate life going at the same time where I'm just like running a community theater, and like because just allowing people being like, great, I'm giving you the theater space for free in a month's time. I'll help you make the poster, you know, and let's work on the show together. But like, and then in a month you've put on a show. And isn't that amazing? And I think that comes maybe from a place of my improv background of thinking like, you know, there can be like, as if you're in the character and you understand like scene dynamics and where you want it to go, then like you can walk up and like create some of the best shows people are going to see in their whole lives, like in that moment. I've also done like a 2-hour narrative improv show. So it was we basically improvised a film.
And what's that like? Dramatic improv? Or?
Yeah.
Oh.
Which was like great because like the person running it really put us out of our comfort zone, and she taught us the Blake Snyder beat sheet. So that's kind of what we based this 2-hour film on, was like following, if we all knew like, oh, this is the inciting incident, you know, then we could kind of track where we were and we're going, and just so we didn't burn out ideas too fast.
Yeah.
But it was a really interesting exercise and one that like I'm super appreciative of. But yeah, I just think that, but same, like you said, with putting a camera in a room, being in an improv space and when that improv show is going well is like electric. It's like nothing you've ever felt before, and you're like, God, and someone just a call back and it's and it just is like the most satisfying thing, and you know you're in it. But then I remember I saw the show, I was like blown away. I was like, it was amazing. And then they were like, oh, we put it up on YouTube. And I went home and I watched it. And it was just not the opposite, but it was you're just like, oh, the magic's gone. Yeah. And it was like just a filmed improv set, didn't have there's something about being in the room. And that's why I think trying to make a short film feel like you're in the room means like being up close and choosing your shot and where am I looking and why is that important. Then you're in it, and there's something that should feel magic about that.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, the camera's over there, but there's magic. If you just look really close, there's magic.
You zoom in, you put your grandma glasses on.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
I don't remember what question. I don't think I answered anything.
I think you've answered a lot. I'm just like, because I'm trying to figure out, we started with, you do so many things, but now I'm like, you do so many things. You got the improv, the stand-up, the writing, the directing, it sounds like I'm doing DMX at this point. The drama, the pain, the hustle. But yeah, man, well done.
Yeah.
Well fucking done.
It's good. It's hard, and I feel I'm hoping for a time of less needing to hustle.
We're all about the grind set here. We're all about the grind set, but sometimes.
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of applying for my next visa. So there's like that weight on top of like, I've just been going from work to doing that to writing this script that's due tomorrow. That's like, yeah, just a lot. There's a lot.
If there's a rich uncle or relative,
please
or even
die.
Bruce Willis.
I know there's no one in my family has money. God bless him. Still owe him anyway, but yeah. It's quite, I think that is it. It's so frustrating to have people be like, oh yeah, my grandfather's from the UK, so I just have a passport. And I'm like, so much of all of the money I've saved up over the past 2 years is going directly into paying to be here. I want to be, and people are like, why do you want to be here? And I'm like, it's not that Canada's bad, you know, it's great. It has so many good things. So, like the amount of things that I've done in the past 2.5 years being here, like could only touch a corner of what I would have. Opposite is so big here, so small Canada. I don't know how to.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Canada couldn't touch what I've done here. Like I got funded for a short. I made other shorts. The connections. So now I have a portfolio of directing and writing. Stand-up's going great. I'm loving that. Paid for it. That's so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's like you're like, that's nice. I love Monkey Barrel. I'm starting to do more of the stand. It's fun. It's a different vibe. It's really nice. And then just the independent shows. Like people are so funny here. I think the level of comedy is like a couple steps up. And this isn't like a fuck you to Canada. It just is like, You come here and you see the comedy and you're just like, I gotta work harder. Like everyone is just baseline. The Glaswegian who meet on the street is so funny. You're like, God, I need to like actually think about how I'm framing this and the mechanisms of my stand-up and how I'm coming off.
Yeah, it's an interesting culture. Like, humor is universal, but I guess you could say that some cities are more likely to laugh at things, or they just find
the pants, man.
It's almost like sometimes they have to struggle a bit more, so they're just constantly like trying to cope. So they're constantly just joking.
It's that they've all got the John Cleese freshly divorced vibe on them, and there's something very good about it. But I think it's it's so much more based in storytelling and they welcome the absurdity, and like I always kind of frame it as in Canada I would be like an absurd comedian. I'd be like the avant-garde one, alternative. But here I'm. Like, I do have some odder bits, but, like, I'm quite straightforward.
Yeah, I would never call you an absurd
But that's
comedian.
because compared to the other comedians in Canada, even just being like, I got a little funny voice, they'd be like, that's not, where's your jokes, ma'am? Like, or I walked off one stage, and I remember a man walked up to me, and he was just like, but that was more like of a storytelling. And I was like, it's just one of those things you're like, I didn't ask. He was also performing, and I was like, I did better than you. So, like, I'm sorry,
Fuck
my
you
story.
too, buddy.
But it's like people trying to process being like, well, she wasn't actually just doing, like, she wasn't trying to, that's the story. And I'm like, here, you're like, but sometimes the story is funny. Yes. And, like, you work out how to put punchlines in. Yeah, I should do more of that. But, like, finding... your place on stage and what people expect from you is really interesting. So yeah, I think like the standard of comedy is so high here and absurd, and like the way you go to see a comedy show at the Fringe and it's just like two people in sailor suits pretending to be twins, and you're like, what? This is amazing. Like, how does this work? And I would never see that in Montreal. So it's just like expanding your view of what's possible and what's happening.
I mean, sometimes the Fringe can be the Fringe, but you
like,
gotta have all of that.
Honestly, when I first watched something at the Fringe, all I remember thinking is like, oh, are you allowed to do that? Because again, it was just like going back to Baby Kate of being like, it's not that anyone said I couldn't. It's just that you assume with what you see, you want to fit in. And I don't like wake up in the morning being like, I'm gonna fucking smash some fucking, glass ceilings or frames. I'm gonna blow everyone's mind of what theater is. Like, no. Yeah, because if you're trying to like smash people's minds, you're gonna create the worst movie ever, because that's the point of it, is to smash people's minds instead of like the story, the character. Yeah. So it's like seeing it and going, oh, you're allowed. You're allowed to have this crazy thing to the side, or, and you're just like, so it kind of sets you free in that way, watching this absurdness. And they don't pay in Canada as much. So, yeah, they pay shit.
I'm cutting this. So there's going to be a whole rant, and at the end I'm just going to put in, and they don't pay as much in Canada.
They don't pay in Canada. Like, oh my God, you go to a comedy show, they give you $5. You're like, oh my God, thank you. Like, you're excited for $5.
That's a paid gig.
Yeah.
Bro. Yeah, I mean,
and here, and then you're like, hey, they're like, I'm so sorry, but all we have is 100 pounds for this. And you're like, I'll let it slide this time. Oh my God. Like, it's so, you're like, fuck yes. Yeah.
Yeah, comedy is an interesting culture. Like, it's unique because there's a lot of weirdness in it. Like, and there's obviously everyone's got their own egos, and then that comes out in some of the wildest ways. Like the comments you get and you give to each other, you're like, who fucking needed that? But whatever. But there's also something beautiful about it, like broken but beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one thing about stand-up that doesn't have to exist, is those like, people can get really weird and jealous and like try and knock you down in these ways, and you're like, because it's only one person on a stage at a time, and I think people feel like, well, there's only that many seats around the table. You're like, build a longer table. Like, make if you have, I think the show you're going to, Darren is such an amazing example of being like, he's had success, and so he invites people onto his show, he invites people onto his podcast, he makes a show, he makes a pod. He's like, he is creating like content for comedy. And I think like the idea of like passing it forward and passing it on and like helping people take a step up is so important. And I think that's why improv is truly like, before you go on stage in improv, you all pat each other's backs and you go, I got your back, because you're a team on stage.
Yeah.
So then moving to stand-up was quite like, whoa, because people are just like, I hope you fail. Okay, have a good set, you know, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, man. Like,
have you actually had...
People will never say, I hope you fail, but like, in like a million little ways they will. Like, and don't think, like when you're at the back of the room, you're just like, oh, did I do better than them? You know, it's this weird thing of like, you're constantly comparing yourself, but like you're trying to retrain your brain to be like, I hope this just is an amazing show. I hope everyone does well.
Yeah.
But there is always that kind of like, you want to be seen as the funniest. And I think that's hurtful instead of just being like, how can we work together?
No, I can relate to that. Like, I think in the beginning, everyone's like, oh, I hope I do well. Everyone just wants to do well and wants to be good. And then, you know, you go up and you're like, well, I guess I did okay.
Yeah.
And then you just keep going after a while. You're like, well, sometimes you do you hope for the best, you try really hard.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens, happens.
Or just like knowing how to fix it on stage, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yes.
But yeah, I really want to stay here because this is where all my connections are.
Should we aim that into the camera?
Yeah,
So like, dear government.
It's the Arts Council that decides, which is wild. But you're just like, you have to prove how like much you've done and how valuable you are. You're like, in the past 5 years, and you're like, 2.5 of those years were a strict lockdown. I could not do comedy in that time. So you're just kind of like...
Here's a selection of my Zoom gigs.
Oh my God, I did one Zoom gig and I was like, again, for me, I'm like, where's the connection for the audience? So I'm not getting... they're not getting anything out of it. I'm not getting enough out of it. Like, I want the people. I want the people there so I can grab their little heads and kiss it. No, not in any weird way.
I love the little pause where you were editing what you're about to say in that sentence. You went with kiss.
I've never kissed someone's head. Someone asked me to touch their head on stage because she has short hair. It was quite nice, but no kissing heads. Anyway, Anyway, I love the UK, and I love the comedy and the film industry and the TV industry, and that like it does. Like the fact that the BBC has an open script call out every year. And yeah, maybe your chances of getting in are like slim to none. And you might have the best script in the world and they say no to it. Like, you know, but the fact that it exists, the fact that the biggest channel in the country would go, send us a script.
Yeah.
Send us a script. Like you're just like, that's so amazing, and Channel 4 does the same thing, and ITV has open. Like you're just like, this is that doesn't happen in Canada, and there's so many short film, independent short film funds, and here, and they'll guide you through. In Canada, there's only the Canada Council or like Provincial Council of Arts, but you have to apply for film money. It's not like a film development program. It's like, we'll give you some money maybe if you apply a couple times to make sure you're committed to it. So it's it's really, I think it's just quite cut off from the arts. And here it just feels like it's so, like the arts is the culture.
Yeah, I have
pantomimes, that employs fucking half the country, you know?
Yeah, there's something a bit more accessible, I think, or they're just art for different people. Like, there's arts for the hoity-toity people as well, but there's arts for the rest of us.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, like there's always going to be a stand-up show in the bottom of a basement.
And, you can count on that.
Yeah, and I think just like you can travel 30 minutes and you enter a new town where you can do a comedy show. And there's just so much more opportunity for
There's always another basement.
Yeah, truly. Endless basement pubs here. And like, or just you look at people's tours of the UK and they have like 50 dates. And that's just for like... They don't even go in Scotland. You know, there's so much where in Canada you'd be like Montreal, maybe Ottawa, Toronto. That's the length from London to Glasgow. And it's like in that space there's only maybe 3 or 4 major cities, but in the UK it's like
condensed.
1 billion.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, the other random question that popped into my head is like we talked about the differences. Is there a difference in the sense of humor of Canadians and British, or Scottish? I keep saying British, and I can hear half my pals going, "It's Scottish."
I think like it's hard to say. I'll go back to like I just think that people here have more of a sense of humor, especially in Scotland, especially in Glasgow. Like. There's bants, there's witty comebacks, there's just all these things where you're like, people are willing to be a little bit silly. There's that sense of, I think, like, not underdogs, but like, people are just, Glasgow isn't the highest on the map. We're not hoity-toity. So there is this sense of like, we can have fun. We can really play.
Yeah, it's something that happens, but like the middle class is trying very hard to like maintain appearances, so they can't laugh. They have to be like, we go to the parties and we dress well, and no, they're not gonna say that we didn't show up, or we're gonna let down the whole kid, whatever. We gotta be the talk of the town for fucking up. Yeah. Meanwhile, when you're like working class, you're like, fuck it.
Exactly. And you have to find, you're like, I'm going to spend all day on the construction site. And then you got to have some patter just to make it, again, it's like, why not laugh throughout the day and then have like a really great night and look at everything and make fun.
And then go on a march.
Yeah. So many of them.
I know.
But yeah, I think a Canadian sense of humor is really hard to peg down because... it's so wide. The people are so far apart. We're like half the population of the UK, but spread over 20 times the landmass at least. So I think each kind of maybe little location would have its own way of kind of speaking about it or things that are funny. But I've always just related more to the British sense of humor. Like that's what I watched growing up, or there's a little bit, we watched Monty Python and stuff, but it was whenever I could decide what I was watching on YouTube at the age of 12. That's and then finding Nevermind the Buzzcocks and Simon Amstel and the Simon Amstel special of Do Nothing. Changed
I
my
bumped
life.
into him actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, at the Fringe. I tried to flyer him.
Oh no, did you not recognize him?
Oh, I did, but I tried to flyer him anyway.
What did he say?
No, thank you.
See, what a gentleman. That's nice. At least he didn't say nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just was watching all the panel shows I could and British movies and British TV shows. That's just what I found funny, and that's what I related to more. So I'm not sure where that necessarily comes from, but yeah. I wouldn't say it's Canadian, but I do. It's not dissimilar. I think there's a lot of this similar lifestyle too.
Yeah, there's overlaps.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to hold you up long because you got stuff to go back to and I got stuff to get into.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got two closing questions.
Okay.
One is you've done all kinds of crazy jobs because creatives do crazy jobs to pay bills. What's the craziest job that you've done that stands out to you? Or it can be two. It doesn't have to be one.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
And the bar is pretty high, I'll have you know.
I ran a donut shop for a day.
One day?
Yeah, because
is that a job, or is that you just invaded a donut shop?
I mean, I wish. It was. I got the job. I was in Toronto. I needed a job, so I was just interviewing everywhere. I got the donut job. I worked one shift. So I think I worked 2 or 3 shifts. Worked one shift, great, and then my friend was like, "I can get you a job at Soho House." In Toronto. And I was like, that's better. I want to be on my feet. I want to be, donut shop is minimum wage. They also wanted to give me managerial
so they clearly recognize your skills and talents.
But they were like, oh yeah, you can take care of this. And I was like, I don't want the responsibility. I want to save my brain for my creative stuff when I get home. I just want to go to work, serve a bunch of people, and then go home. So yeah, so then they asked me for I think, was it a trial shift or was it interview / trial shift? But they didn't really they never tell you how long it's going to be. So they were like, it's 11 a.m., just come in, we'll do a little trial shift. So I was like, great. I was supposed to be at the donut shop for, I think, 4 or something. I don't know. Let's say 4. And so then, I was still, working. And I was like, I don't want to turn to them at my the job that I want and go, actually I need to finish up this shift somewhere. Like I was like, I need to make the best impression here. And then so then I just like didn't show up, and that was, I didn't know what to do because I didn't have my phone on me, like it was put away while I was on, and I was just like, I think I got let off the shift and I biked as hard as I could to this donut shop, and I just like, the person inside was like, what the fuck? She was supposed to have left like, I don't know, I would say only 2 hours before, because it wasn't it wasn't like a 6 hour later I came. It was just like definitely beyond late. And I was like, do you want me to close? And she was like, no. And then I was like, that's fair. Like I would just have stepped in and done the closing, and she's like, I may as well just do it. And I was like, I assume we'll never see each other again. And then like left and got my other job.
Fair enough.
But for a couple of days I sold donuts, and it was just boring.
And you just like, the donut life is not for you?
I think they should have let me take home more donuts, if I'm going to be very honest with you.
Okay.
They let us take home one a shift, and I was like,
one donut?
I would throw out all the other gluten-free donuts, and I'd be like,
at least a tray, like, come on.
if they're not being sold and you're throwing them out, let me take me home.
My home,
please. Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question is, well, it's kind of ties into the donuts, I guess, but I always like to ask people about the food from their country that people in the UK need to know about. So what's the Canadian food?
There's not much. I'm sure there's like a lot of great, anyway. I think when you think of Canadian food, it's a hard one.
But what do you like? What you like? It's not, it doesn't have to be, I want you to represent your country.
It's like poutine.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a shop called La Banquise in Montreal, and it has just so many poutines, and like is the best thing you can get at 1 a.m. Fresh cheese curds that like squeak in your mouth, melt with the gravy. You can get vegan, you can get like all these things.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There's also Nanaimo bars, but that's like a cocoa base, some sort of like custard icing filling, and then you coat it with chocolate on top. Don't know why.
Gluten-free.
You know what? They're very easily to make gluten-free, yeah.
There we go.
And maple syrup.
Canada is a place of culture after all.
Yes. Well, I think there's a place called Nanaimo in BC, in British Columbia.
Okay.
But who knows why they had to make a square for it. I don't know. But it's been made, and people eat it sometimes.
Well, thank you so much. You have given. I've had a cultural experience.
Yes. Can you taste the Nanaimo in your mouth?
Well, I'm going to look it up now.
Yeah.
There's going to be a photo of this. So for the thumbnail, there's going to be a photo of the Nanaimo.
Yes.
I promise.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yay.
Oh my God. We did it.
Right on time as well.